there, boys and girls. Welcome to topic 3.2, the respiratory system. Today we're going to be talking about my lungs right here, my trachea, and how the air gets up into my nose. So, the respiratory system. The key functions of the respiratory system are, as we all can imagine, breathing, obviously. Okay, when we think of respiratory system, you think of breathing and gas exchange. Those are the two main functions of the respiratory system. So here is the respiratory system. And there is me. That's so funny. Okay, so here are the parts of the respiratory system. We start with the nose and the mouth. The nose and mouth are where the air gets into our bodies. From there, it goes down into the trachea. Some of you may have remembered from the digestive system we were talking about the other day, the little flap called the epiglottis, which prevents food from getting into the trachea. Okay, so we have the little epiglottis on the side here. From the trachea, it branches off into two branches called the bronchi, which enter into the lungs. And inside the lungs, we have a bunch of little bronchioles, okay? And those bronchioles branch off from the bronchi. And at the end of the bronchioles, there are these little air sacs called alveoli. And we're going to be talking about those momentarily. And at the bottom, a very, very important structure called the diaphragm. So breathing, okay? The process of breathing or process of bringing air in and out of our lungs is breathing. That's what breathing is. That's what breathing is. And it occurs because of the rib muscles, so the muscles on our ribs, as well as something called the diaphragm. So I'm going to get my buddy, the mannequin, out here. Okay, so the diaphragm is a large muscle that's below the lungs that helps move air in and out. So here is my mannequin dude. Okay, and as you guys can see, right here are the lungs, okay? I'm gonna pop the lungs out. Take out the lungs, remove the heart, oops. And this muscle right here, this big, thick muscle, that's called the diaphragm, okay? And the diaphragm separates the lower cavity from the upper cavity. We're gonna talk about how the diaphragm actually works. Okay, so when we breathe, obviously when we inhale, we take a deep breath in. So everybody do that right now. Take a deep breath in. Sounds kind of weird, but you're all doing it, so it's working, okay? Think about what happens when you take that breath in, okay? What happens to our chest? What happens to our ribs? So when we breathe in, the diaphragm, that big, thick muscle I was just telling you about, it actually pulls down. It moves down, and when you breathe in, that chest pops up, okay? So the ribs move up and out, okay? So boys, think about what you do whenever you walk by, someone that you're thinking looks pretty cute. You pop up that chest, right, to make yourself look like you have that big, strong, muscular chest. The result is air gets sucked into our bodies. So the diaphragm moves down and the ribs move up and out. When we exhale, the opposite happens. We breathe out and we can feel our chest relax, okay? Our diaphragm starts to move up, okay? So our diaphragm moves up. And when it moves up, that helps move the ribs move down and inward. Those two combined help push the air out of our body, okay? And I've got a nice little model here that I borrowed from a Bill Nye video, okay? So I made this just a few minutes ago, and it shows how the diaphragm and the chest and the lungs actually work. So this balloon right here, let's make the picture a little bit bigger. Perfect. I'll go even bigger than that. Look at that. There we go. Okay, so this balloon right here, imagine that is our lungs. And this balloon that I taped to the bottom, imagine that's our diaphragm. If I push up, okay, the diaphragm is relaxing, it's pushing up. You can see the balloon that represents the lungs, it pushes the air out. When I breathe in, when I take a deep breath in, okay? I pulled down on the diaphragm, you can see the balloon inflates a bit. That is actually what is happening with our lungs. Every time we breathe in and out, our diaphragm moves down. When we breathe in, the lungs fill up with air. When we exhale, breathe out, the air gets pushed out by the diaphragm pushing down. Holy cool. Went to the dollar store to get all that for you. All right, let's make myself small again. Perfect. Okay, air's path. As air is drawn into our nose or our mouth, okay, it passes through the pharynx, the nasal cavity, or the larynx, the voice box, okay? And then it travels down our trachea. This right here is the trachea from my little mannequin. Okay? And if you take a look, it has it's sort of rib shaped, okay? And it's got that nice ribbed, hard cartilage shape to help protect it. I've actually got, grab me the one there. You can actually purchase tracheas like so at a pet store. This is actually a cow trachea. This is about the size of your trachea. You can see it's kind of not super big. That's the size of a trachea of a cow. So you can buy these as a dog treat at a pet store or whatnot. But you can see this has been dried out, but it's pretty hard. It's a hard cartilage, and it's meant to be hard so that it can withstand the air going through. Okay, your trachea is protected by half rings of cartilage. Okay, and the trachea, like I said earlier in that other video, bunches off into two separate tubes called the bronchi. Okay, and so right here are our two top tubes branching off. One goes into one lung, one goes into the other one. Okay, from there, and I don't have that on my model, unfortunately. So sorry, the bronchi, the two main branches. The bronchi split off into narrow branches called bronchioles, and you can't really see it in the model, but you can sort of see a whole bunch of different colors there. That's supposed to represent the different branches. At the end of the branches are these these small little air-like sacs called alveoli. And you can actually see on the right here, we can see a little picture of them as well as over on the diagram on the top. They're little air-filled sacs, okay? And that is actually where gas exchange occurs. So they are really, 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 really important. Okay, they contain thin special epithelial tissue. So you may remember when we talked about the villi, the little finger-like projections in this small intestine that had epithelial tissue, very, very thin epithelial tissue. The alveoli have the same thing, very, very thin tissue. And it's so thin that it's only one cell layer thick. So we're going to talk about red blood cells and whatnot a little bit later. What you guys have seen on the microscope lab, how small cells are. This tissue is one cell layer thick. Also surrounding the alveoli are these tiny little blood vessels called capillaries. Okay, and the capillaries, again, we're going to learn more about them tomorrow. They are where gas exchange actually occurs. So you have a really thin epithelial tissue on the alveoli, and it's covered with these really, really thin blood vessels. And because they're so small and so thin, that allows gas exchange to occur very quickly. Okay. And we've talked about the process of diffusion. This is how it happens. Gas exchange occurs because of diffusion. There was a reason we were talking about that stuff. The air in the alveoli is very, very high, has a very high concentration of oxygen. When we breathe in, we're sucking in the oxygen, and a low concentration of carbon dioxide. The blood that surrounds that alveoli, well, it will have a low concentration of oxygen and a high concentration of carbon dioxide. That oxygen from the alveoli is going to want to get into those capillaries. The carbon dioxide from the capillaries is going to want to go into the alveoli. So that's where the gas exchange happens, and they switch. The oxygen from the alveoli go into the capillaries, and the carbon dioxide from the capillaries goes into the alveoli. And that's how we get rid of our carbon dioxide. So again, here's another really good picture of it. You can see here's the alveoli, and then we've got some purple blood in our blood vessel, and then we have some red blood over here. The purple blood, that's purple because it's filled with carbon dioxide. It lets that carbon dioxide out of the alveoli, and at the same time, the oxygen goes in, and they hitch a ride with the blood cells, and it sends that oxygen to wherever we need it, our big toe or whatnot. This is really, really important. Why is it important? It's important so the gas exchange happens quickly. We don't want the gas exchange to go slow, because if it is too slow or the alveoli end up with too much oxygen, it may not be able to drop off that carbon dioxide. And if that happens, then we end up by suffocating or not having enough carbon dioxide or enough oxygen in our bodies. Oxygen needs to diffuse from the alveoli, high concentration, into the blood, the low concentration, and vice versa. Carbon dioxide needs to get the heck out of there. Okay, that's it. That was very quick, very straightforward. We weren't going into too much detail. I will put a link to a Bill Nye video so that you guys can access the Bill Nye video. As well, if you have any questions, of course, please email me. Work on your application questions. You can work on your digestive tail, those types of things. Other than that, keep learning. Don't take too much time off. Have fun, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.